Hello everyone and welcome back to Send It's Weather channel. Well, as we normally do, we'll be looking at the latest from the models. We've also got a couple of extra features lined up at the end of the video. We're going to be having a look at this Hurricane Erin to see how it will affect the UK. Will it even affect the UK? Will it just be an area of low pressure? Or will it go towards Greenland like areas of low pressure sometimes do? Well, we'll look at all that in just a minute. Thank you all very much for tuning in to today's video. If you do enjoy it, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. I do appreciate your continued support. Let's get on with the video. At the moment, then, we've got high pressure centre just over and to the north of the UK, and the winds are in from an easterly direction. So we're pretty dry, pretty mild for the time of year. Not too bad. Winds remain from an easterly direction into the start of next week. However, as you can see, that high pressure begins to move further northwestwards, I should say, towards Greenland. And as you can see, high pressure positioned between Iceland and Greenland. Low pressure is well to our northeast, and winds are in from a northeasterly direction. So things gradually cooling down by the middle to latter part of next week, around Thursday. Things begin to cool down. Nothing too dramatic though, and we are still under high pressure. There's a ridge building through the country, so we are remaining still mostly dry. But as you can see, an area of low pressure is making its appearance known. You can just see it there, and this is Erin. That is the worst writing ever, but that is Erin. And as you can see, very vigorous area of low pressure. But as it goes along the jet stream, is carried along by the jet stream and moves towards the UK, it does weaken. And with this latest GFS run, which is different to the previous predecessor run, the 6 said, taking it further northwards. You can see it's going like this. The jet stream is slightly further northwards with this. Got an area of high pressure out to our west. Got high pressure to our southeast. Winds in from a southwesterly direction. And it actually drags up some milder air or hotter air into the southeast again. But generally milder air. Because where the low gets stuck out to our west and to our northwest. And before it weakens and sort of develops away from the UK. So there's a lot of uncertainty about this hurricane. If it will even affect the UK. But you see on this run, it actually goes to our north. So we remain, well, kind of average temperatures really. Nothing too much going on. Still remaining mostly dry really. But then into the longer term, high pressure to the south, low pressure to the north. Winds are in from a westerly direction until right at the very end when we've got high pressure positioned to our southwest. Low pressure's well out in the Atlantic, and we've got areas of low pressure over Scandinavia. So a very mixed picture, but we're settled under a ridge at this point. So slightly cooler than average, but nothing too ridiculous going on at the end of this run. So yeah, you can see there's a little bit of uncertainty about this hurricane, or ex-hurricane. So how does the GEM develop this? Well, again, high pressure is just to our north and northwest at this point, bringing in the wind from an northeasterly direction, keeping things mostly dry and not too bad. But as you can see, by Wednesday into Thursday, high pressure's moving, or beginning to retrogress, I guess, towards Greenland. Winds going to more of a northwesterly direction, northeasterly direction, I should say, and cools things down a little bit, not too much for the GEM, less cool conditions, and it doesn't last nowhere near as long. But going into that longer term, into next week, the other part next week, low pressure's out to our west, high pressure's out to our south and east, and winds are turning to a southerly direction. Here's that Hurricane Erin. You can see it's developed in the Atlantic, but as it moves close to the UK and actually moves to our northwest again and develops into a trough over Iceland and Greenland, you can see it kind of underdevelops. It kind of just gets stuck over Iceland, and we don't really see too many effects. Maybe slightly breezier or windier in the north, but you can see again with that low pressure park to our west, it does drag in that milder air for a time. So things do turn warmer into the early part of next week, or the week after next, I should say. But definitely not as unsettled. You can see at the last frame, it looks like high pressure is going to begin to move back to our south. Low pressure sat to our north, and winds might revert into an Atlantic-driven direction. But if anywhere looks to be affected, it does look like it will be the north of Scotland at this point. Now onto the ECM run, and high pressure again out to our northwest, or moving to our northwest by Tuesday into Wednesday. Winds are in from a northwesterly direction, so cooling things down. Bit more so than the GEM run. Ridge builds through the country for a few days, so keeping things mostly dry and settled. Before things turn milder again, there's Hurricane Erin out to our west. Developed area of low pressure out to our west. Winds are in from a southwesterly direction, so turning things milder. But as you can see with this run, the ECM, it actually it gets the low parked over to our west, so we actually continue to bring in milder winds from the south, as you can see there, from a southerly or southwesterly direction. So things might turn warmer or milder beyond that, but as you can see, that low pressure area is parked out to our west. So that means that things will be kept mostly dry. The only places that might see any of this precipitation would be particularly Ireland and Northern Ireland, and maybe northwestern Scotland, which are closest to the area of low pressure, with the slightly slacker pressure gradients. But again, nothing too much going on there, let's be honest. We'll show off the CFS run just to see if there's any particular trends, because why not? We're actually going to skip to December, because why not? You know what I mean? Why not? You can see actually, if we look at this pattern, though it's showing for November, it does look very dry and quite mild as well. But going into December, as we normally would, very quickly, I said I'd show a few extra features. High pressure's over Scandinavia with this run, Scandinavian high, and it looks quite a cool start to the winter with winds in from a southeasterly direction. -5 line through the country, may even bring a few wintry showers to parts of the country. That's a bit high. And you can see there, wintry showers possible with that from the southeast. What have I just pressed? Whoopsie daisies. Going beyond that, low pressure sliding through the country. High pressure develops out to our west, winds in from a northwesterly direction, or northeasterly direction, I should say, and turning things relatively cool or cold for the time of year into the second week of December. Looks quite cold for about a few days there in the third week of December. Christmas time, things turn super mild, as you'd expect. Winds in from a southerly direction, turning things mild for Christmas, with high pressure packed to our south, and it looks like a very mild pattern. Right until the end of the run, until around the second week of January, things look quite mild and quite dry, until eventually by the 15th of Jan, high pressure positions over Scandinavia and winds turn into an easterly direction. Looks quite a cold easterly as well. Look at that, -15 Celsius ice firm just off the northeast coast of Scotland there. -5 clearing the country into France. Pretty cold there. And at the very end, you can just see threatening a northerly wind. Look at that at the end of the run. High pressure to our west, retrogressing towards Greenland. Low pressures to our east. Winds in from a northeasterly direction. We've got an area of low pressure trying to bring milder Atlantic conditions. Boundary line, you'd see lots of snow. That's a pretty good run. -10 isotherm through the country. Boundary between the colder air and the milder air. You could see lots of snow there on that boundary. Whoa, that'd get some people talking, that's for sure. If that came off. Then low pressure just parks through the country, and at the end of the run we've got a low park to our west, so that's just bringing up a southerly wind. So yeah, just thought I'd include that at the end of the video. Yeah, it looks pretty unsettled, but with colder spells at times. What we'd expect, really, isn't it? But anyway, so will Hurricane Erin even affect the UK? Well, it's all to play for. It's still a bit of a way off, and very uncertain at the moment, is what I'd say. But, you know, we'll have to just wait and see. You've got to just base it on what we've seen this year already, though, as well. Looking at the 850 HPA charts for the midday run, you can see above average temperatures for the next couple of days. Things do return to slightly below average with cooler conditions, but into the longer term, we're favouring above average conditions, above average temperatures, I should say, into the longer term. In terms of precipitation, maybe slightly more unsettled at the end of the run, but until around the 29th, it looks pretty dry, especially for London. Further north towards Aberdeen, again, that Hurricane Erin might have an effect. Bit unsettled, but nothing too ridiculous with the precipitation spikes showing up there. If we look at the ECM run for Aberdeen, can see again slightly more precipitation spikes, but nothing too crazy, and a very similar trend, except albeit not as milder in the longer term, just a little bit above average. So there you go. Thank you all for watching today's video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye, everyone.